Welcome to the Dan Norton Show, a show on which I promote Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism, a philosophy of reason, egoism, and capitalism. It is Tuesday, September 2nd, 2025. This is Atlas Shrugged Day, or at least that's what some people call it. And that's because September 2nd is the day that Ayn Rand started writing Atlas Shrugged, or at least making notes for Atlas Shrugged. There was a video that was published earlier today about September 2nd and its significance for Atlas Shrugged on the Ayn Rand Institute channel. I watched some of that. Maybe some of you saw it as well. And I happened to be streaming on that day. So, welcome to my Atlas Shrugged Day live stream. This is a show on which you can participate. You can have an influence on the topics I discuss. I invite you and encourage you to participate in the chat on YouTube. You can also call in. There's a Zoom link, which I have pinned in the chat, as well as a phone number. So I'm happy to chat, debate, discuss anything related to Ayn Rand's philosophy of objectivism. And there's a lot more to it than reason, egoism, and capitalism, as I indicate on my background. You can see a lot of the concepts that are relevant to the philosophy, and happy to discuss any of them. Okay, so it's been a few days since I did my last live stream. I had a call with Holden Mitrione or Mitrione. I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but that was the main subject of the last call. Holden is an economics major. He debated Charlie Kirk. I think many people first heard about him through his debate with Charlie Kirk, and he happened to call into my show a few days ago, and that was good. I enjoyed having that conversation. A lot of it was spent discussing where to start with reading Ayn Rand because he hasn't read Ayn Rand yet, but sounds like he's just starting it, and I gave him some recommendations, and other people gave him recommendations as well in the comments afterwards. There was a couple people who provided advice on how to start. So thanks for participating there as well. And Holden did see those comments because he replied to them. I saw that. So hopefully that was helpful to him or to anyone else who's watching. This show is geared to people, partly people who are new to Ayn Rand, but um, it's really open to anyone who has an interest in discussing Rand's ideas, whether you're completely new to them or you've been studying them for a long time. Okay, so I do like to give priority in terms of what I talk about to topics that people raise in the live stream chat, people who are here live. So now is a great time to jump in. If there's something you would like me to discuss, just mention it in the chat, or if you have a comment, question, just say hi. All of that is good, and then I will engage with that. Otherwise, I have some things I could talk about, and I guess I will do that until I start seeing some chats. But feel free to jump in the chat or call in at any time. And thanks for the likes, by the way. I see we got some likes on the stream. Got some subscribers in the last few days, up to 935 right now. It's been fluctuating. I think the last show was at 933, and the show before that it was 936. So it's gone up and down and back up. Um, so you can be part of the first 1,000 subscribers if you subscribe now, if you're not already subscribed. That was actually one thing I might talk about a little, just my metrics on where I am on my path to getting my channel monetized. I guess I could talk about that now. I could also talk some about uh, my reading, give you a reading update. Also, I looked over the chats from the last live stream I did. I didn't have time to read through it all during the live stream because mostly I was focused on having a conversation with Holden, and I couldn't split my attention between the chat and having that conversation. But after the stream, I did read through it all, and I saw some chats that I thought I might comment on. So that's another thing I could do. By the way, I did see Holden also. He was on the AMA Ask Me Anything session with Yaron Brook recently. He was talking a lot about tariffs and taxes. It was getting into some pretty technical discussion there. That was interesting to hear. Um, you can really see Holden is been thinking a lot about those issues and definitely knows some things about economics. I wasn't able to follow all of the discussion, but I did watch his three segments. He had three segments with Euron asking a question. I think that was the August AMA from about August 23rd, I think, somewhere around there. And I saw he was also on a previous AMA. Maybe it was the July AMA with Euron. He asked a question there too. So maybe that was the first. I tried to see all the Holden content on the Euron Brook show just to get to get to know Holden a little better. So I did a search on Euron's channel, and I found a couple. I found those two AMAs, and I didn't realize that when I had my discussion with Holden last time that he had been on these AMAs. But one of the chatters, I think maybe Greg Lewis, had said that he had seen Holden on one of Euron Brooks' AMAs. So um, that made me interested to go back and look that up and find those. So I did find a couple shows, and Holden said he had been listening to Euron for about 6 months, I think, but um, I didn't know he had actually been in these AMAs, so that was interesting to see. Okay, so yeah, those are I think I mentioned the things I might talk more about until I get some chats. So maybe I should just dive into some of that. Um, okay, I'll talk about the metrics on my YouTube channel first. Oh, maybe I'll pause that. I just saw a chat comment from Tom Harrison, new person. I don't recognize Tom, so hi, Tom. He says, one thing I have noticed on the objectivist front on the trans issue, that is men pretending to be girls playing sports, but playing girls sports. In my opinion, they kind of pussyfoot around the issue. Rand would be pissed off about this, in my opinion, says Tom. Okay. I'm just seeing if I can find Tom's channel. Sometimes if I see a new chatter, I like to go take a quick look at their channel. Okay, I don't see any videos there. Just um, I haven't talked much about trans issues on my show. I have a little bit. I do have one video where I discuss it. But it's only a couple minutes long. But maybe I should discuss it more now. Yeah, I guess I'll engage with that some now because and then later maybe I'll get to this the metrics, the YouTube metrics stuff if unless I have plenty of material in chat to engage with. So, let me read this again. So Tom thinks that Rand would be very pissed off about trans issues and um, trans women playing in women's sports. Oh, Tom says he doesn't have a channel like content, but he's just a recent subscriber from Rob and Amy. Okay, good to know. Thanks for letting me know where you're coming from. It's always interesting to for me to hear how you find out about my channel. I wonder, you say you're a subscriber from Robert and Amy. Does that mean that they mentioned my show on their show and that's how you found out about me? Or did you just watch one of their videos and then YouTube's algorithm thought maybe you would be interested in one of my videos, so then YouTube just suggested one of my videos after you saw one of theirs? I'm curious how that worked. Um, oh, Tom says he listens to Euron as well. Okay. I know sometimes Euron's videos recommend mine because I can see in my analytics what other videos are recommending mine after you finish their videos. And yeah, sometimes Euron's videos do that. They recommend my channel. And I see we got CW here, another new chatter. I think he's a new chatter. I don't recognize him. He says, asking about objectivity and subjectivity. What is the philosophy of objectivism? Okay. All right. That gives us a lot of material to engage with. Um, good to see. Thanks, CW. I'll come back to that. And then Tom says, yes, Robert and Amy mentioned it. That is my channel, I guess. But I may have saw you on Sam Cedar. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people have seen me there. Um, I wonder which episode that was where Robert and Amy mentioned my channel. I'd like to check that out. Um, was that their last show or something longer ago? Um, as for the trans stuff and Rand's view, we don't really know. We can infer what she would think about it, but I don't think she ever commented on it. It wasn't really uh, as much of a thing back then. It's only been in the last, I don't know, decade or so that it seems like it's become a prominent topic of discussion in the culture. Um, but oh, Tom says a month or so ago. Thanks. Okay, I'll have to check that out. But I do know that she had some harsh things to say about homosexuality. I think she said that was disgusting and immoral. I'm I don't I don't recall exactly where that was. I think it might have been in a Q&A session following one of her lectures that she said this. I don't know if she said it in other places, maybe multiple places, but she did at least have a harsh opinion of homosexuality. So um, maybe that would be some evidence that she would also have a harsh opinion of trans people. Uh, However, I do also know that Harry Binswanger said in a video, he's an objectivist philosopher, that Ayn Rand gave a different opinion. I think maybe in private, just speaking with him later in her life. I got the impression it was maybe in the 70s. That's when Harry Binswanger was friends with her and knew her best, spent the most time with her. And he talks about this in one of the episodes of HBTV, Harry Binswanger TV, which was a series that was on the Ayn Rand Center UK's YouTube channel for a while. I don't think it's still running. Um, After October 7th, I think they've predominantly focused on the Ayn Rand Center UK channel on issues related to Israel, and I think maybe that's when the HBTV series stopped there. But I think the episodes are still on their channel, so you can go back and find it, I think. But I think in one of those episodes, Harry talks about how Ayn Rand had a softer view. She wasn't as critical of homosexuality, and she thought maybe it could be moral. So maybe she changed her view on that. So I think it's very plausible that at least at one time in Rand's life, she would have been quite hostile to the phenomenon of transgenderism. Uh, However, maybe she also would have softened up on that later in life. Um, so we can speculate, but I guess we can't be sure what Rand would have thought. Of course, the most important thing is what is true. Now, I think Rand is often a great guide uh, to finding out what is true because I do think she's a genius. As I said in the title for today's show, the world needs the rationality and genius of Ayn Rand. So I think it's definitely worth um, knowing what Rand's opinion on something is, what her reasons for her opinions are, um, because I think she was a genius and had so much brilliant insight. It's not to say she was infallible. She might change her mind on things, like with the homosexuality issue. Maybe she would have done that with the trans issue if she were aware of it. But we can also just think independently of Rand, and we should always do that anyways. Um, uh, what do we think of uh, a given issue? And then we can consider what other people, including Rand, have to say, but always have to go by your own judgment in the end. Exercise the virtue of independence. That's one of the virtues I have listed on my backgrounds. Um, think for yourself. Um, so I guess one comment I can make about the uh, trans people playing, trans women playing and you can even debate that term, like is trans women the best term for them? You say, Tom, in the chat, you say men pretending to be girls. So you might think it's a kind of concession to call them trans women, as that implies they're some kind of women when they're actually not. So you can have a debate about what is the best term to use for them. But um, maybe I'll just call them trans women for now, at least. And you can have a debate over whether trans women should be in girls' sports. Now, I think it should be left to the free market. I don't think that's a issue that the government should be involved with. You could have a the role of the government is just to protect people from force, from the initiation of force, from robbers, rapers, murderers. It's not to tell people they have to construct their sports leagues in a certain way. Um, if you're an entrepreneur, businessman, businesswoman, and you want to start a sports league that is exclusively for biological women, you should be free to do that. You should also be free to start a sports league that is open to transgender people, where you have transgender or trans women uh, competing on the same teams or against biological women. Um, so that's just not something the government should interfere with. Now, you still might have your opinion as to whether just because the government allows something doesn't mean it's good. Like the government um, shouldn't go around enforcing that people are objectivists, even if it's good to be an objectivist or to follow reason as opposed to faith. Even if that's a good thing, that doesn't mean the government should coerce people to do that. You actually can't coerce people to follow reason. That's something that's up to an individual's choice. Um, so just because the government um, doesn't properly coerce people in regard to some issue doesn't mean there's not a good or a bad thing to do. Like even though the government shouldn't coerce people to be objectivists or to follow reason doesn't mean it's bad not to follow reason. Did I say that right? Doesn't mean it's not bad not to follow reason. I'm getting myself confused here. But anyways, I'm just trying to say that it might be immoral or a bad thing for trans women to compete with biological women, even if you you agree with me that the government shouldn't enforce that. But I do think it's just important to separate those issues. I think today there's a lot of discussion in the culture about trans issues, which and maybe it's overblown. I think Yaron was talking about this on a recent show. Yaron Brook, another objectivist podcaster, I guess the biggest single objectivist podcaster out there. Um, he was talking about how conservatives these days they're on the Trump train and all of this economic ruin and destruction is happening with the tariffs. Uh, but they want to talk about trans issues, or that's like a bigger issue on their radar. All that matters for them is that Trump is attacking the left, even though he's wreaking all this economic destruction. They're not too concerned about that. They'll defend him, his economic policies, but what's important to them, even objectivists, or at least so-called objectivists, I guess you could debate whether they're actual objectivists. None of that matters, all that economic stuff Trump is doing. What is important is he's attacking the left. And because he's doing that, we're now pro-Trump. I think what Euron was saying is the attitude of many objectivists. So this whole trans issue, even if you think there is a problem with it, you might also think that the concern about it is overblown, and there are more important issues, and that maybe this issue is functioning as a kind of distraction from more important issues that the government should be involved with. Okay, so there's a few thoughts on the trans issues. I see we got several more chats from Tom. Let me see what else he said, and I'll come back to CW's comment. But since I'm on this topic, I want to stay on this for a little bit more at least. Tom says Rand never commented on the trans issue, but based on her comments on Donahue about women trying to be longshoremen or professional football players, I guess. It's maybe you didn't have enough characters to finish that thought. Yeah, she was against the idea of a woman president. She wrote an article about that, about a woman president, and she thought it was psychologically unhealthy, I think, for a woman to want to be the commander in chief, the very top person. Maybe a woman could be run a company, and she actually has a woman in one of her novels as one of the executives of a company, vice president of a railroad, which I think for the time was very unusual. Um, so women could be in leadership positions. However, Rand thought it was sort of something wrong for wanting to be the very, very, very top, most powerful person in the country kind of leadership position, the commander of the armed forces, commander in chief, and every man is below you in a sense, every person in a sense you're looking down to. And I think given her understanding of the nature of femininity, she thought it was part of the essence of femininity to have some man to look up to. And I guess if you're the president and you're a woman, and maybe in your private life, you could still have a sort of position where you're looking up to a man. However, I guess it would still be kind of awkward to have your whole career where you are the top, most powerful person. So somehow I think Rand just saw it as against the nature of femininity. That's not part of objectivism, though. I think that's objectivism is a philosophy. It's not a psychology. Um, I mean, I get it has psychological implications, like people need self-esteem. I think that's a psychological truth. But maybe there are certain aspects of psychology, the more detailed, nitty-gritty kind of things like could a woman be psychologically healthy and also want to be president? I don't think your view on that is is part of objectivism. I think this it was a personal view of Rand's, but I don't think she would say this is part of the objectivist philosophy. Maybe she would argue it's an implication of it, but I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure she would even say it's an implication as opposed to a, a view that she personally found plausible. And maybe it was in that context of discussing the issue of the woman president that she also said it would be strange for a woman to be a longshoreman or a professional football player. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've seen that interview. Um, but I do think that's reasonable to think that there are certain kinds of professions which are more suited to one gender or one sex than the other. Um, I don't think that's a crazy view. Um, I mean, I do think she would agree with me that the government should not be involved in coercing sports leagues to be set up in a certain way. But would she say it's immoral? Okay, Tom says he agreed the government should not get involved. Would she say even though the government shouldn't get involved, it's immoral? Um, maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I remember when I was a kid, sometimes I played soccer as a kid and basketball, and sometimes there would be a girl on the other team. This didn't happen, but I do remember at least a couple times, once in soccer and once in basketball, that there was a girl on the other team. But this was, well, like 8 years old, 9 years old, and you might think at that age it doesn't matter as much. The differences aren't as big. Like once you hit puberty, I think it changes and the differences become more obvious and relevant. But at very young ages, maybe it doesn't matter so much, and you might think it's not as serious. It's just a little hobby or something for kids to try out. It's not as competitive, as seriously taken as once you get to higher levels. You might think it's more of a problem once you get to high school and college levels. Um, so maybe you would think it's reasonable to think it's immoral at some ages, but not at other ages. Um, but I really wish the free market could just settle all this. It can be surprising sometimes what the free market comes up with. It's You can't really predict what solutions it will come up with. Uh, Tom says, "Oh, we got Godspeed. Hi, Godspeed. Um, I'll get you your comment in a second." Tom says, "My whole point is that it is ridiculous for men competing in women's sports. The Emperor's new clothes." Um, it does strike me as kind of ridiculous sometimes, like this swimmer who was Leah Thompson. That was one of the Leah Thomas. I don't recall exactly the name, but when she, or maybe I should say he, I don't know what the rules. I don't know if YouTube has rules about that. Like if you're supposed to use the preferred pronouns of someone, or if you can use whatever pronouns you want. I don't know. But sometimes I feel it's more natural to use one than the other. Like even if I think someone is a male, technically speaking, like But if are they present as a female, like they're a trans woman, and from all you could tell, like you just look at them, if you saw them on the street and you had no idea who they are, you would think it was a woman. They're passing, so-called, right? Then it feels more natural to use the she pronoun than if it's just someone who looks like a normal man and you would guess it's a man. Yet it turns out it's a biological woman. Uh, I guess sometimes it feels natural to use what you would guess the person is just by looking at them if you didn't know any better. So I haven't thought much about this, but I'm just kind of telling you some of my off the top of my head thoughts or feelings about this. As I mentioned, I haven't discussed this much on my channel before. Uh, but yeah, when Leah Thomas was in the news, it did seem kind of ridiculous to me. Need a cough drop here. Um, and unfair to the women, to the biological women. Like I don't like to see women who work so hard at a sport and then they don't get they get beat out by this biological male. I think that upsets a lot of people. Um, so I can understand that being upset with that. Um, Tom says the language is intentionally confusing to mess things up. Oh, Holden is here. He says he joined on Zoom. Okay. I'll get to your call in a minute, Holden. I just want to spend a little more time at least on this on the chat. Maybe I'll finish up this trans topic and then I'll go to your call. Um, Godspeed says, I agree. The language is intentionally and deceptively vague. I don't know if that's always the case. The language is intended to confuse. Like, let's say you are a trans person. By the way, there is an episode on the Ayn Rand Institute's YouTube channel about trans issues. There's at least one. I don't know if there's more than one, but there was a review of a book or a discussion of a book. I think it was called, was it Material Girls? Or am I thinking of something else? Um, Let me do a quick Google um, search. Yeah, Kathleen Stock. She was the author, and she has a book called Material Girls: Why Reality Matters for Feminism. And that was the discussion. That was the subject of a discussion on the Ayn Rand Institute's podcast, which dealt with trans issues. You might want to check that out. Check that out. Um, so, like, if you actually are a person who you have some kind of condition, um, I don't know if you want to call it disorder or dysmorphia. Some people will say it's not a disorder or there's nothing wrong with it. So it's wrong to call it a disorder or a dysmorphia. Um, it's just someone's choice. So I don't know if I want to take a position on that here now. Not that I necessarily have a position. I mean, as I said, I haven't thought about this much, but if you are one of these trans people, and you make a big effort to become looking like the other gender through your clothes, through surgeries, through hormones, then it might be confusing not to use female pronouns for that person. at least at a certain point. Maybe if you're at the beginning of the transition and you still look like a man, let's say like a biological man, it would be confusing to call someone a to use female pronouns at that point. But maybe if they're further along in their transition and you can no longer tell the difference between this person and a biological woman, then it might be confusing to continue to use male pronouns, at least to third parties who don't know um, what the person's biological sex actually is, what it was at birth. So I don't know that the language is necessarily intended to confuse. Um, Maybe it is in some cases. I don't think it's necessarily like nefarious, or it might just be natural in some cases. Uh, okay, Holden says no problem. He's eating right now. Okay, so let me. I'm not in a. He's not in a rush for me to get to his call. Um, Actually, before I forget, let me just make sure my Zoom settings are right, so I'm ready to take his call when I get to it. I talked about you, Holden, a little bit at the beginning of the stream. I was telling people how I looked you up and you're on Brooks' channel, and I saw your AMAs. You did an AMA with Euron in August, and also I saw you did one in July. I'd be curious to know if there were any others, or I was trying to find all the Holden content I could on Euron's show. Another thing I'm going to do while I'm here, I'm going to give you the power to mute and unmute yourself, because last time you were muting yourself and I had to ask you to unmute, but I forgot I could just give you the power to control your own muting. So this time I'll 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 check that option. Okay. All right. Let me also okay, I got my Zoom ready to go, but let me just come back to the chat for a second and see if there's anything else I want to discuss before taking Holden's call. Um, Tom says they seem to never want to play in the men's league. It always goes the other way to the girls' league. Well, yeah, I guess that's because, well, I don't know if it always goes that way. I haven't done a scientific survey of it, but I mean, the cases you hear about most, I guess, are those cases in the news. Um, but I guess if they identify more as girls or they're trying to be girls, then that's why they would want to play with the girls' league. I guess they would feel their identity is not being observed or respected or something if they're playing in the men's league. Okay. Maybe we can discuss more on this. CW, I don't know if you're still here. You asked the question about, well, let me just respond quickly. Um, you asked, in your understanding, what is objectivity? What is subjectivity? What is the philosophy of objectivism? Okay, I mean, that could be a huge topic. In a nutshell, objectivism, it's Ayn Rand's philosophy. She was a novelist, a philosopher. She stands for reason, egoism, and capitalism. And you can see on my background many of the other concepts that are part of her philosophy. Um, I've talked some about what objectivity and subjectivity mean on previous shows, and maybe we can do it more, but I think not right now. Maybe later in this show, if you're still around. Let me know if you're still here in the chat later, and then that'll give me more reason to discuss those issues some. Okay, but I'm going to take Holden's call now. And okay, I have admitted him. And he's muted, but he should be able to unmute. I don't know if he's
Yeah.
there we go. Hey,
1 second.
welcome back.
Thank you. So let me see if I can do this.
Oh,
Uh,
do you want to do video this time or?
It says unable to start video, so maybe
Okay,
you
yeah, the video I do still have to ask you to do that part. So let me do that real quick. Okay, start video. Now you should be able to do it.
cool. So I decided to pick up the Fountainhead, and right now I'm on page 242.
Wow.
So
Great.
yeah.
You're really into it then.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
like
pretty
I don't know if that's part two, but the novel has
it's
four
part two, yeah.
parts.
I'm on part
Okay.
two and I just finished chapter four, so not too long earlier today. I was at they like conscript you into these like into like a court thing where you have to go to jury. So
Yeah.
today I had to do that and I was reading the Fountainhead while I was there. And yeah, so and I read like 150 pages to whenever I got the book. So I'm moving along.
Awesome. Yeah, so
Yeah.
for anyone who doesn't know, Holden was here the last live stream a few days ago, and um, I was giving him some recommendations on where he might start, and other people also were doing that. And so um, Holden is reading The Fountainhead. So this is the first thing you started to read after our last chat?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I actually am reading another book too as we speak, um but it
ITOE?
has no, it's a economics book, but
Oh, okay, a non-Rand book.
yeah, yeah, I picked up the Fountainhead and so yeah, that's what we're doing right now and we could talk about it if you want.
Yeah, we could do that. So I was mentioning
Don't
that
spoil anything though, please.
yeah, I'm gonna make every
I'm into
effort.
it.
Yeah,
But
I
by
don't
the
want
way,
to.
if anybody in here has not read it, don't don't listen to this. At
Yeah.
least, yeah.
Um. So yeah, I was saying if you can start with the fiction, I would recommend that. So that way you can avoid plot spoilers. And I was thinking later, after the show last time that in my case it was probably a particularly bad case of spoilers. Not so much because I read the fiction, the nonfiction first, although I do think there are some spoilers there. But I had also listened to lectures courses by Leonard Peikoff. I know one I heard was called The Art of Thinking. And in that lecture course, he does like this in-depth character analysis of some of the characters in The
Oh
Fountainhead
my.
or Atlas Shrugged or mostly both. And like, I had never read these books before, yet he's doing like these, I don't know, hours long or dozens of minutes character analysis. So it was really spoiled for me once I got to the
Uh,
fiction. And I think I had probably heard a bunch of other lectures because I didn't get to the fiction until a year later. I started reading Rand the summer after I graduated high school, and it wasn't until the next summer that I started reading her fiction. So I had a year's worth of studying objectivism. So I had many opportunities to get spoilers, which
hmm.
now I was also thinking that since you listen to your own show, you might get some spoilers from that. Like if someone is asking questions about the novel.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've noticed that at all w with the Fountainhead since you've already read, a big hunk of it, but that is one thing.
Not that I remember. I mean,
Okay.
I basically know like I've heard of Howard before I read it, but I don't know like I didn't know much about him. And then I know what Galt is. I know who Galt is, but I haven't read Atlas Shrugged. So
Okay.
but I don't know like the characters very well or anything. But I do know Howard now, of course, that I've
Yeah.
read part one and five chapters of part two.
Okay. Wow, this
Four
is really
chapters, I
exciting.
guess.
Okay, so yeah, so if you haven't read The Fountainhead, then you might want to postpone listening to this episode because I don't know what kind of spoilers there might be, but I'm just really curious, like what has been your reaction so far?
Um, I guess I've never definitely never in a fiction novel that I've read seen a character like Howard Rourke is. He is the most intransigent human being you could possibly think of. And but one thing I love about him that I could relate to is I love economics so much. And it's so clear that Howard loves his work so much. He loves being an architect. And And that's part of what makes him good. He's obviously a smart guy. He's obviously he's obvious all that stuff. But aside that, in order, I think, to be like really good at something, you have to love it. So, and Howard loves his work, even though he it doesn't get the appreciation that his that Peter say gets, even though he's a much better architect than Peter is. The world doesn't really know it, and he's fine with that. But
Yeah.
um, my reaction is basically, I mean, it's like it's just so much. It's like Dominique is an interesting character. Like she kind of came in a little later on, and uh basically I'm starting to know more about the uncle of Katie, Gail Wyand, I think his name is, or two, no, sorry, Ellsworth Toohey, Ellsworth Toohey, um, and Toohey is like, having Katie like do all this stuff for her, and Katie's like this altruist, and 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 it's like Peter doesn't know what he's doing, and he's kind of here and there. One thing that interested me also is that Dominique would always go on dates with Peter. um like Dominique is such a weird character because she has like this kind of nihilistic view. Like she has this like, like it's like that one thing about how she told someone, I forgot who she told, but basically like she like destroyed the statue of this naked man because she didn't like him, or because she loved him too much, basically. Like she doesn't want to fall in love. And then of course that I just read that scene of her in Howard, and she like can't help herself but to see him because she likes him so much, and she doesn't want to fall in love, and she can't keep herself away. And so my reaction is like, I mean, it's weird. Like she's, the way that Ayn Rand is like playing this out is like it's kind of unlike anything I've seen in fiction before.
Hmm. I do think it is a very unique novel, and especially Dominique. I mean Rourke also, but yeah, Dominique. Um, yeah, I can definitely relate to her seeming to be. I don't know what word you used. If it was like strange or hard to understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dominique, yeah. And she's like, that scene, I don't know if like you could basically like she didn't want I guess like if you're here already listening, then you're already spoiled, but this is gonna be even more. Um the scene in the first, I think it was chapter one of part two. Whenever like she didn't want to have sex with Howard, basically, but she did like want to have sex with him really bad at the same time. And and like it's just like she it was like one of the weirdest scenes. I was like, I had to reread it. I was like, what's going on here? Like what just happened? Like um and uh and that was like she's so like she wants to not fall in love with him so much, but but she can't help herself at the same time. It's like I don't know. It's like I could tell that's like going to be very controversial to like, you know, people nowadays if they read that. If they're like, well, Howard is like a monster for doing this. And then but Ayn Rand probably would be like, well, this is what Dominique obviously truly desires, right? But yeah.
You reminded me, I actually have a video on my channel about this. It's often called the rape scene, like with rape in quotes, because
Uh-huh.
she wants it.
Yeah. But she's like fighting. Like she
Yeah, well, I
yeah.
think that's part of how it's a way, it's kind of like a counterintuitive way of showing how much she wants it. Like she wants him to overcome her resistance because that concretizes for her. It makes more clear how much he desires her. Like even when she's fighting him off, he's
Uh,
still like he's not going to let that stop him. And I think that gives her like this thrill or this rush of pleasure that he wants her that bad that even when she's fighting. Now she doesn't say no, right? She never says stop,
right, right.
but she does stuff like she
She does
grabs the
fight.
lamp. Yeah,
Yeah.
she grabs the lamp off the bedstand and she like tries to hit him with it or something. And I the other thing like scratches him and um
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great scene.
I've never seen anything like it for sure. Like it's either like black or white, but this is like not this is like I'm unlike and with no context, it's like you don't understand it, but you know, obviously like and then the way that she goes to the site that Howard's working on and just like, you know, like she's like, where is that dude? And and they're like, "Oh, well, actually he's gone now." Him hiring another laborer was so funny to do that. Is he's yeah, it's like he's such a character, Howard is.
Yeah, Pasquale. I think that's the
Yeah.
laborer. Yeah, and she doesn't even find out his name. Like uh, she after the rape scene, she still doesn't even know his
Yeah,
name.
she doesn't even know his name and she's like, "Where is that dude?" And they're like, "Who?" Like the orange hair guy and it's like, yeah. And she's like, "Damn it, it's better if I don't know his name," but she can't help herself. She can't help it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
All
And
right.
then, you
So
know, Howard's in New York now with like 10 million people. She's like, "Oh gosh, well, well, that's gone." And then turns out not. So,
okay. Great, great. So let's see. I'm curious what your background is in terms of religion. Like people come to Ayn Rand from many different backgrounds. Some people
uh,
they're raised religiously, some people not. And that will affect like how you react to her novels. Like some people, they have the reaction when they read Ayn Rand, like, oh, she's saying everything I always felt. Like she's just giving words to what I was feeling my whole life. And other people, it's much more of like a shock. Like with Euron Brook, I don't know if you've heard him tell this story. He was fighting with Atlas Shrugged. He said he was like physically
uh,
throwing the book against the wall, and then he
really?
had to like, yeah, he was a socialist. Growing up like hardcore, and he said like his dream was to be the guy in the Israeli army who jumped on the grenade and sacrificed himself for
Uh-huh.
the other people. So I think for him, it wasn't like, oh, Ayn Rand is just saying what I always felt. It was actually more of a conflict, and over time, he came to agree with Rand's view. But I was curious in your case, like, is, well, I guess it'll there's different parts of the novel that will bring out different reactions. But I'm just wondering, like, sort of what your background is philosophically coming to the novel.
I mean, I guess like I am just a nobody on philosophy and yeah, I got my I don't have like any strong opinions right now really to be honest. And then when it comes to theology, I'm definitely an atheist or agnostic kind of type. So,
So
yeah.
you weren't raised religiously as a
My mom
kid?
was, but my dad is an atheist and I kind of agreed with him for a solid amount of the time.
So you didn't go to church when you were growing up,
My
or
mom would make me do it a few times here and there.
okay,
Like, you know, yeah, she would make me and I never enjoyed it.
okay. So
Yeah.
religion wasn't a big part of your life growing
No,
up.
definitely not.
Okay.
Definitely not.
Yeah, I think if it were, then you when you encounter something like the rape scene, you have these people, they're just like pursuing violently their pleasures, their physical
Mm.
gratification. And I mean not just physical, I think there's a spiritual component to it.
Oh, sure.
Although
Yeah.
um but I think if you come from a religious background, you might say, "Oh, this is a dirty, animalistic kind of thing they're doing. How unsacred," um, and you might have a kind of hostile reaction, or maybe it'll make you feel uncomfortable in some way. Whereas if you have a more secular background coming to the novel, then I guess you're less likely to have that kind of antagonistic reaction, and maybe you can
Yeah.
enjoy it more. And
Yeah, I would
um,
say that's probably right. I mean, like if you'd be like, this is such a vulgar, you know, like thing for like I can't like you would be like pissed off at Howard. But you know, I get the if you get the context and everything, I think it's yeah, I think that you could understand what's going on there, truly.
And you might even have like kind of flip the religious view on its head and think of it, this is like a holy, this is a sacred thing.
Yeah,
Far from
exactly.
being like sacrilegious, you might think like this is the heights of experience because sexual
Yeah,
pleasure is such a
really.
powerful form of pleasure. I think it's the most powerful form. So, what could be better than having an experience like this? So,
Yeah, exactly.
um,
Yeah, I agree 100%. And it's like you want to do it with someone like you actually care about and like clearly clearly like and you actually like admire and like as a person for both, so like and clearly like yeah, it's like Howard admires Dominique and vice versa. So,
yeah. I'm just looking at the chat here. I see Dootsie has come in, but it looks like she just said she's gonna oh she says good evening, Dan and chat. We'll be listening until I fall asleep. Okay. Yeah, Dootsie is in Belgium, so I think that's 9 hours ahead. Belgium time. Yeah, you are 9 hours ahead, so it's 12:25 a.m. your time, and maybe you already did fall asleep. Anyways, have a good rest. Maybe you'll have some dream related to what we're talking about. Maybe we're sliding into your dream consciousness. Tom says, "Thanks, Dan. I guess that's for the discussion of the trans stuff. You're welcome." And looked like those are all the chats. Okay, and we got some more likes on the stream. Thanks for those. That'll help it in the algorithm. Okay, so let's see what else. You mentioned that Rourke is the most intransigent person.
yeah,
You've
definitely.
so I guess can you give me an example of something that made you think he's intransigent?
Well, I mean, there's like 1,000, but most notably, I would say is this guy was like he was basically couldn't pay his landlord. He couldn't pay his phone bill. They're gonna turn his phone off, and he's in this situation where he needs a commission for he needs to do a project, and this bank calls him like, hey, we want to do it, we just want to change like this little, a few little things here, and then let's get it on with. And they kind of know like what the situation he's in, like it's not like he's very prosperous right now from a monetary standpoint. And he looks at them and like he's like, are you like like no, like what are you even talking about, like do you know who I am, almost like we're gonna do it my way or the highway. Like, I want it to look great. I want to believe that it looks great if I'm gonna do it, basically. And even for a small compromise, he won't do it. Like, and the way it starts from the beginning of the book with the deans. Basically, and then it goes on, and then he like how many, from he got a job at Peter's company, the Franken firm, and he got fired because he refused to do a job the boss's way, basically. He's like, no, I'm not going to do that, basically put my name on it. And like he just goes on and on. I basically lost count of how many times he's rejected projects and commissions because it went against his his way of doing it. So I get, maybe that's by design, but yeah, so it's just like on and on.
Yeah, so the Manhattan Bank building, I think that's the one where you were the first example you were talking about, where they see he really needs the commission because he's I guess he's gonna have to move out of his apartment or something, and he can't pay his bills
Yeah, his
unless
office
he gets
building.
yeah, and then they want to tweak the design, like add a classic portico or something to his building, and that just ruins it in his eyes. It doesn't. It's um it's a violation of the integrity of the building. It's like doesn't fit with the theme, and
Mhm.
so he turns it down. And then you remember the line where he says. It says someone, I guess someone in the boardroom or wherever they're offering him this commission, they says like, "Why do you have to be so self-sacrificing?"
And he's
And
like the
then
opposite. He's
he's like,
like,
You remember the line? He
Was
said,
it, he said this is like the most selfish thing I could do or something like that.
well, he says that's the most selfish thing you've seen a man do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And that's I think that gives th that really brings into focus that Ayn Rand has a different view of selfishness than I mean, assuming that Rourke is speaking for Rand, that she has a very different view of what selfishness means than most people do. They think of it as self-sacrificial to do something like turn down this commission, whereas Rourke says, no, that's the most selfish thing. Not only is it selfish, it's the most selfish thing you've ever
Right,
seen a
the
man
most
do. So
selfish. Yeah, that's what I remember.
yeah,
Most selfish, you know. Um,
yeah. So she has a very radical view, a very unconventional view of selfishness or self-interest.
right. And
Um,
how much of it is like the marketing aspect? Because like it's like truly what she means is rational self-interest. Like surely if you like ask like the average person what selfishness means, they'll be like, oh well, it means um, like you basically don't care about other people, like or whatever, but and clearly Howard, you know, Howard, he would care about someone like Mike or something. Um, but he's not, he does like what's in his interest, or what he believes that's going to be in his long-term interest. So that's, kind of a difference, obviously.
yeah, selfishness, it can mean caring about others, but because they matter to you. You're not just indiscriminate in who you care about. It's not like the Christian philosophy of love everyone, love your neighbor, even love your enemy, love thy enemy. No, it's, love someone or value someone if they are uh, beneficial to your life, if they add to your life and your happiness. And if they do, then you can definitely care about them and you should care about them. It's a
Right.
self-interested thing to care about them. Um, it's selfish in Rand's sense. There
Yeah.
is, I've done some work on the issue of the dictionary definition of selfishness. But
Mhm.
maybe I'll leave that for another time. That's another. Yeah, I'll postpone that till later.
Sure,
Um,
whatever you think. Um,
yeah,
I guess another takeaway that I have so far is that like I brought up Mike, speaking of Mike um and like he's a mathematics teacher from, and all the people that and Houseworth and all those people basically they admire Howard, but all the people that are basically cowards and are always like have like very low self-esteem all hate Howard. It's like it's funny how that all works. Um, and I'm sure it's intentional too, and something that I've noticed. Basically, Peter basically like hates Howard, but it's probably because he makes him feel insecure, to be honest. Knowing that he's a better architect, and without him, he can't design like Howard can, and he knows it deep down, and he doesn't put his himself basically first and his interests first like Howard does, and he resents that Howard does that, and he doesn't basically.
Mm.
If I maybe I'm reading it wrong, but
most of that I think was sounding right to me. I'm curious what other fiction you've read. Like when I was reading Rand's fiction, I think I mean I had to read fiction for English classes in high school, but I hadn't read much beyond that.
yeah,
So I don't know if you're like a voracious fiction reader or anything, or you just read what you read for high school classes or what. But
yeah, pretty much for high school classes. Most of the stuff I've read is nonfiction, but I do like fiction. Um,
okay.
yeah, I like it. I guess like if it's a good story, I like a good story. But I wouldn't say I'm a voracious fiction reader.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm certainly not, and I read almost no fiction. Pretty well, yeah. I can take out the almost. I read no fiction these days. I don't think. I mean, unless I'm forgetting. Well, I am reading the Bible. You might consider that to be
Yeah.
fiction of sorts. But yeah, that's an exceptional case. Mostly I'm reading nonfiction these days, but. I was just curious, like how the fiction you've read in the past compared to Rand's fiction for you. Like I'm think for me, I think I read a lot of modern 20th century fiction in high school, like Virginia Woolf, James Joyce,
Oh.
um, who is Herman Hesse, the novel Siddhartha, George Orwell's 1984, Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. And then yeah, I read some Shakespeare, various plays. Didn't read any
Hmm.
Rands in high school. I hadn't even heard of Rand in high school. I heard about Rand independently of high school. Like my brother recommended Rand to me. That's how I heard about her.
Hmm.
But she is read in, I think, probably much more widely in high school these days than when I was in high school because the Ayn Rand Institute has their what they call their free books to teachers program, where they send out like hundreds of thousands of copies to schools around the country. Um, Now, I don't know if you had ever heard of Rand in high school, but um, I guess we talked about that a little bit last time. But I'm just thinking, like, I think Rand is very different than all the fiction that I read in high school in in a refreshing kind of way. I mean, I responded very positively to it.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, like it's definitely different than what I've read previously in many ways. Like many of the stories that I've read have been very like okay, so let me give you an example of a story that I read. It was about this guy who who had a court case who apparently was guilty who we didn't know whether or not he was basically guilty of something. And he didn't think this protagonist character didn't think he was guilty. And whenever the book finished, basically, he was found not guilty in the case. And and basically he like went to go like hug his lawyer or something, and the lawyer like just looked at him and walked away. Um and like that's like it's kind of like a nihilist story, kind of like it's like all right, like okay. Um like other stories like there's very much a sense of there's a huge sense of altruism, generally speaking, to so like nihilism, altruism, um there's like a like do what's good for the family or do what's good for XYZ. Even like movies that like for example, I watched Squid Games with my ex-girlfriend, uh and um it was like this just nihilistic show, like like where a bunch of rich people watch people, like try and earn money. They're like these uh uh like gutter snipes that are trying to go in and get some money for because they have nothing else better to do, and it's like fuck it. And just for their own pleasure, like nihilistic stuff like that. Basically, I've been exposed to it, right? Also like yeah, I mean, it hasn't always been like that. I'd say like there's some characters, but like there's also some good messages, I guess, in some of the fiction novels, but definitely Rand is different from that and the nihilism and altruism points that basically so far because Howard I guess like Dominique is has a little bit of of a f anything good in this world because this world is too dark and it's too terrible for for anything good to be appreciated, basically. I don't know how that's going to turn out. We'll see how it goes with Dominique, but certainly that's what her attitude is right now. But definitely Howard is like, I'm just going to do great no matter what. Like, F what the world thinks. Even if the world doesn't appreciate, something, here's a cross connection that I made in my mind too. And so I read Warren Buffett's biography. And one of the things in Warren Buffett's biography was, would you rather be, he would always say, would you rather be the best lover in the world when everybody else thinks you're the worst? Or would you rather be the worst lover in the world while everybody else
hmm.
thinks you're the best? And it was like actually like a deep question, like, like that you have to actually have to ask yourself. And clearly Howard would know the answer to that, but Peter probably would have to think about it, like. and like it's a genuine question. Like, you know, it's like basically, that's something, and those are things like I also like, even like I say a fiction, but biographies I like to read too. So I could kind of like, it's obviously nonfiction, but they're stories at the they're stories of people's lives, and and yeah, basically like all the great people, they all love their work, and they all pursued what they really love to do. And basically they mostly cared, like the really smart people, they mostly cared about their judgment the most, and kind of trusted themselves to like make good decisions and kind of live with that and try and learn, and make better decisions in the future. And like that's especially true, of course, with like someone like Buffett, because investing, like you have to bet against the crowd to make a lot of money. So you kind of have to have independent judgment in that game. But anyway, that's kind of my rant.
Yeah, I guess I have a similar kind of uh, feeling about Rand as being relatively positive as opposed to the stuff I read in high school. I do think it had, you were talking about like a nihilistic streak or altruistic streak. I don't know that I noticed altruism so much, but I think there was a kind of maybe nihilistic or absurdist element. We read like some existentialist philosophers, Camus, The Stranger, and James Joyce. And I guess there's like some nonsense sounds. It's unintelligible, some of the words. And I think this kind of reflected the times of, I guess this was post World War One. There was this mass slaughter in Europe, and in the wake of that, I guess there was this um, kind of a downfall of optimism and crisis of confidence. And I think that was reflected in some of the art being more kind of malevolent and absurdist, like nothing in the world makes sense. There's just this chaos and destruction. And I think that was definitely one of the main themes of some of the literature that I was exposed to. So Rand was quite a contrast to that. Um, Much more positive, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. Obviously, we're with each other on nihilism, but there also like, is some similarities I saw. Like obviously not fiction in some ways, but like with people in real life, definitely have like a lot of qualities that say a Howard would have. Like Steve Jobs, for example. I read his biography, and Steve Jobs was just obsessed with what he did and like perfecting it. Um, and he was like, he acted very much in a selfish way, what people would say like an asshole way a lot of the time, but he just didn't care what you thought. He just wanted to perfect what he was doing. Um, and that was the essence of Steve Jobs. Um, and that's very much like Howard, another person I could think of for that. So like positive ways, it's very much like, it's very much, yeah, in that way it's very much focused on positive things, not just the negative. Um, Obviously there is the negative there, but yeah, they're basically yeah, you could
And
have like,
I don't want to spoil anything by saying positive. Like, at least there are parts
don't
that are
spoil anything.
positive. Yeah. So, like, in the end, we'll see. Like, oh, you'll see. Like, would you really say Rand is positive? Or, but there are at least elements which you can see from the part you've read of positivity, like, um, that you might not see in authors like Virginia Woolf or James Joyce or Albert Camus. It definitely has a different flavor. But I do think I wanted to say this. I do think you made a great choice in starting with the Fountainhead. And I'm curious, like, why you did choose to start with the Fountainhead. Because I gave you a lot of recommendations and things to consider. Yeah, so how did you choose that one?
Well, I saw it was a fiction novel, and you told me to start with the fiction, so, and then I was like, all right, well, and then I basically was like, well, Anthem is a pretty short one, and I kind of wanted to do a longer one, so I went with the Fountainhead.
Hmm.
I thought the Fountainhead was like more popular, than Anthem, so I was like, all right, let's do the Fountainhead, and then I'll just go from there. So that's kind
Hmm.
of like what's my thought. I didn't really think that much about it, to be honest. I was just like, all right, let's order this book and read it. So
Oh, did you get a Kindle version, like electronically, or you actually got a? Oh, you
no,
showed me. Yeah, you
I
showed me
got
you
it.
had it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had
Yeah, I
to, yeah,
guess that comes pretty fast in the mail if you got something like Amazon delivery.
exactly. Like the next day it will
Nice.
be there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that might be like the best place you could start is with that novel. Again, unless you're like someone who can only tolerate nonfiction, like I sort of was when I got into it. But I'm very happy that you decided to start with that one. I think that's a great choice.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just follow your advice and we'll see where it goes, with reading rate. You're the authority, I'll listen to you.
Well, I mean, I have my preferences, but I don't think there's necessarily one best way for everyone to go through the material. But I can definitely give you my advice, and you can consider it and decide. Be like Rourke, and decide for yourself.
Right. No, I mean, I'm enjoying the fiction, I think that it was the right decision, but we'll see what happens, you know. And I don't
All
want any
right.
spoilers, so I was kind of like, all right, I want to like see the story from the first like, the raw interpretation. I don't want anybody else's like filtered view. I want to see like my own view of it
Yeah.
and kind of like from all the stuff that I've read and all the stuff that I've done and kind of like let me just reflect it for myself and then see what people say after. But but yeah, and also I knew that you would be here so I could kind of chat with you as I go along, but maybe I'll be done the
Yep.
next time you start your next scene, your next or
Yeah, I typically do these like I try to do them like every 4 days roughly. So, and I also might have to do jury duty myself soon.
oh
So we'll
God.
see. I'll find out on Sunday, I think. I don't know if I'll do maybe I'll do another live stream before then. Not sure. Anyways, yeah, I guess let's leave it there for now. But thank you for calling in, and that was
Yeah.
really exciting to hear
Yeah, of
that
course.
you're
Yeah,
reading that.
thanks. Thanks
So,
for letting me come on and I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you next time.
all right, sounds great.
See ya.
All right, very good. Glad that he's taken some time to read Rand, one of her greatest works. Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. I think those would be her two greatest works. Um, all right. I see we got some more chats from Evolutionary, who was here last time. Actually, I thought I might respond to some of your chats from last time. So maybe this is a good chance to do that. All right, we got some more people watching. It's got up to 11 now. Great. 7 likes. Thank you. Um, all right, so I'm just gonna take a quick look at my channel. Oh, we got another subscriber too. Back up to 936. I was at 936 about a week ago, and then it went down to 933, and now it's climbing back up to 936. Uh, all right, so thank you to whoever subscribed. Oh, that was see. All right, yeah, it should show me. I don't know if I should say it, but yeah, I guess some of my subscribers are public, so I get a notification. You can change your settings as to whether they're publicly viewable or not, the channels you subscribe to, but thank you for subscribing. So I guess I'll address some of Evolutionary's comments from last time. But let me read what he says this time first. He says at 3:05, evolution selects for altruism. What is the at 3:05 mean? I don't understand that part. Are you referring to another chat that occurred at 3:05? Right now it's 3:49 my time. Then you say some altruism in a population. Group selection is a valid concept in evolutionary game theory. I'm not sure what you're replying to there. Um, but yeah, maybe I'll come back to some of your chats from last time. So I think I should I bring that up on the screen? Yeah, I think I'll do that. Let me just find the video. And I made notes of timestamps, so that should help me find it quicker. Okay, I'm going to share this screen. All right, so this is my last live stream. You can see Holden there again, because Holden called into my last live stream. And I'm going to show the chat replay. Change it to live chat. And then, okay, so here's some chats from the last stream. And there were some from Evolutionary, which I was going to talk about a little bit. And let me just look in my notes. Oh, yeah, 144:25. That's where it was. So I got to fast forward some. Here, 144. That should be good. Yeah, 144:25. Here we go. So I think I made a comment about, I guess, something about egoism and how my life is what matters. And then evolutionary here, he says, because your life is finite and doesn't matter in the long run, Dan, when you die, society will live on, and that is worth living your life for, not something that is doomed. So, um, I just make sure this is showing up on this. Yeah, it's showing up on the screen correctly. Yeah, so my reaction to that is, why should I care that the universe goes on after I die? Um, Society will live on. So what? I want to make the most of my life. The context here, I guess I was arguing against utilitarianism, which says what's good is whatever is best for the greatest number. Although I think evolutionary said he's not that kind of utilitarian, so maybe he doesn't agree with that slogan of doing the greatest good for the greatest number. But anyways, he's not an egoist, and I am an egoist. Objectivism is a philosophy of egoism. One lives for oneself. That is the highest value, your own life. So I don't care if my life is finite and that society or the world goes on after I die. Um, why does that matter to me? Why should that matter to me? I want to make the most of my life. I want to achieve my own happiness. My happiness is what is worth living for, not some other people's happiness. Um, so, do you have an answer to that? Um, we were talking last time, or I was saying, well, maybe we should discuss determinism because that's a fundamental point, deeper than ethics, I think. But evolutionary didn't want to talk about that. He wanted to discuss other issues like in ethics or politics. So I was thinking, okay, well, maybe we can just go to this ethical issue. Explain to me why you think there's something more important than my own life and happiness. Why should I care about something more than that? It doesn't matter if something goes on existing after me. So what? Why should I care about that? All right, let me come back to the today's chat. I'll just highlight this for now. Actually, someone asked, I think it was on the Donahue interview with Ayn Rand, or she did two. I think one was 1979 and the other was 1980. And in one of those, she was getting old, right? She died in 1982, so these interviews happened just a few years before she died, and Donahue asks her in one of these interviews, like, "Do you ever think about what's going to happen after you die or something?" Like, and she says, like, "Oh, it's not I who will end; it's the world that ends." Um, and it's maybe she's giving a kind of egoist perspective, like what matters is you, like everything else is irrelevant. So that's an interesting exchange. You might want to check that out. Um, but let me come back to the chat. See, I see some more from Evolutionary. He says the link to the video didn't go through, but you can search Evolutionary Game Theory, and it's the Khan Academy video. Okay. I I don't think okay. Yeah, that's not a response to what I just said, but I see another chat just came in, which maybe is. He says, say all that matters is your life, but why does Red allow sacrifices? Oh, I guess you meant Rand. Why does Rand allow sacrifices for one's kids? She doesn't. We've talked about this example before. They're not sacrifices if you value your kids. On Rand's understanding, it's self-interested to risk giving your life up for the kid, or at least it could be, because your life is more miserable without the kid. Yeah, so yeah, we've discussed this one before. And the same issue with these others, friends, family, coworkers, you say the rest. I mean, the more further you get, the less plausible it is that it would be self-interested to do something like risk your life. Oh, Audrey's here. Hi, Audrey. uh like what you would be willing to do for your kid, I think should be different than what you should be willing to do for some random stranger. Like maybe you would risk your life to save your kid's life, but you wouldn't risk your life to save some random stranger. So depending on how much you value the person, I think it will affect whether or not a given action is self-interested. Like maybe it would be self-interested to risk drowning in order to save your kid, but it would not be self-interested to risk drowning to save some random stranger. And it would definitely not be self-interested. It would be the opposite to risk drowning to save your enemy, someone who's going to kill you, let's say, someone who wants to murder you. It would not be self-interested to risk drowning to save that person from drowning. So it just depends how close the person is to you as to whether a given action is self-interested or not. Okay, now you say, yeah, but why can't you just say that you can't bear to live if society suffers? Uh, are you implying that's something I would say or that I actually think? Um, Matthew Stroud, hi. He says value hierarchy. Yeah, depending on something's position in your hierarchy of values, like is this your highest value? Is it a very one of your top values, or is it very marginal and unimportant in your life? That's going to affect how you act towards it. Um, I can't bear to live if society suffers. I don't really think like that. Like I might say I can't bear to live if my child or my spouse suffers, but society is much more removed. I mean, I need a society to do well for me to do well. Like my own life goes much better in a society of freedom than in a society that's authoritarian or totalitarian. But um, when you put it in terms like that, can't bear to live, then I'm not sure I would want to say that about a society. Like I might say that about my spouse, but I don't know that I would say I can't bear to live without a society in the way I would say I can't bear to live without my spouse. They're just I think they occupy different sorts of places in the in my value hierarchy. Um, Audrey says, I care for society to the extent that it benefits me. Yeah. And if it doesn't benefit you, you might leave. And I think some people are choosing to leave, like because when things get bad in a country, people will look at other opportunities. Like if Trump is uh, making America so bad, like for immigrants, for especially for immigrants, I think immigrants are less likely to want to move to the United States than before Trump, because they don't have ICE agents coming after them. And I think so people are less likely to immigrate now than they used to be. And maybe people who are here now, who are immigrants, um, might consider leaving. I think they're more likely to consider leaving because the society is not as good for them. So I guess they're taking an egoistic kind of perspective, and I think that's good. They should do what's best for them. So the society can change, and depending on how much it benefits you or harms you, that'll affect whether you should decide to stay or not. But it's a self-interested issue. You're not staying or leaving for the purpose of fitting into society. It's does the society fit into your life and values? Does it integrate with your life and happiness? Does it benefit you? Um, uh, Evolutionary says at that point, when you can reason out, you can sacrifice yourself for one thing because of feelings you can necessarily make the same Morgan arguments for anything since it's subjective. All right, I did not understand that. So, all right, so I've addressed some of Evolutionary's points from last time and from this time. Oh, I think I'm still sharing that screen. Here, let me stop the sharing. Okay. And I guess the other thing, oh, I was going to talk about the YouTube metrics. I guess I could go into that now since I think I'm caught up on the chat. I don't know if CW is still here. I last saw him an hour ago in the chat. Um, if you're still here, CW, you can let me know, and then maybe I'll talk about that question you asked earlier about objectivity and subjectivity, or what is the philosophy of objectivism? Maybe I can say more about that. But if you're not still here, I think I'll go on to some other issues after I take a break. I think I want to take a break here for maybe like 7 or 8 minutes. When did I start today? 2:30. So that was an hour and a half ago. Um, I think I'm going to take a break now, and then we can continue. I see another chat just came in from Evolutionary. He says, so value is subjective. Why is it called objectivism? No. Uh, Value is objective for objectivism. But what that means is that's a whole discussion, uh, which I'm not sure I want to go into right now. But let me read. I see another related chat came in from Audrey, so I'll read that. Subjectivity is not about being unique to the individual as opposed to being a consensus among individuals. Subjectivity is rather about whether one's standard of truth is correspondence with reality. There are different senses of the terms subjective and objective. There's metaphysical senses, there's epistemological senses, and I think the relevant ones here is are the epistemological senses of subjective and objective. I think those terms have to do with a certain method you use, like you can use it an objective method of arriving at a claim, like following if you follow logic and evidence and reason, as opposed to just following emotion. Then you could be said to be following an objective method. But if you do just go by your emotions, your feelings, then I think you could say that's a subjective method. And I think you can, as applied to values, you can have a subjective versus the objective way of determining whether something is a value. Like if you just say, "Oh, it's a value because I feel like it's good," then that would be a subjective way of evaluating it. But if you can give some kind of logical argumentation to show why it's a value, if you have some proof that something is a rational standard to use for measuring value, and then something conforms to that standard, then you could say this is an objective value. Um, Ayn Rand argues that life is the standard of value. And so if something promotes life, meaning in organism's own life, not just life in general, uh, if something promotes an organism's own life, it's a value for that, or it's good for that organism. Audrey says metaphysical subjectivity has no relevance to whether one is epistemologically subjective. Um, I think they are distinct, maybe related, but distinct issues. Like metaphysical subjectivity, I guess you could think of that as the idea that you could bring something into existence, like God's consciousness. He said, "Let there be light," or "Let there be critters running around the earth." You might think that's metaphysical subjectivism. You could just bring something into existence by an act of will, or at least that's one kind of metaphysical subjectivity. Maybe there are other kinds. Wishing doesn't make it so. That's a denial of metaphysical subjectivity, right? God just wishes there to be something, or you might pray for some outcome, hope for some outcome, but that doesn't make it so. To think that it does make something so, to think that it does make something a fact would be to hold a kind of metaphysical subjectivism. You can just bring some fact into existence just by wishing it or hoping for it or praying for it. Um, but I do think that's different than somewhat different than what is meant when you say someone who's being subjective, when you mean they're just going by their feelings in judging something. Um, Matthew says subjective consciousness without reality, intrinsic reality without consciousness, objective consciousness plus reality. Yeah. This is the trichotomy, or at least one trichotomy that you hear about in the objectivist literature. Often people have a dichotomy. There's two alternative ways of thinking about something, like there's subjective and objective. But in objectivism, there's three. There's subjective, objective, and intrinsic. Um, and I think there are relations between the metaphysical and epistemological senses of these terms, but they're not the same. They're not identical. But I think there's a relation. And I don't know that I could spell out clearly right now exactly how it all connects, but um, I've said at least a little about it. maybe we can dig into it some more later. All right, I see another chat from a new person. Dispel Marketable Archive asks, were Haitians eating dogs? Wow. Um, I don't know. I haven't looked into that. I remember claims being made about that back during the presidential race 2024 from, I guess, summer of last year, I think. And I heard some discussion of that on the You're on Brooke show, among other places. But I didn't look into it much myself, so I don't know if Haitians were eating dogs or if the claims about the extent of it were overblown or if they were completely baseless. I think I might have heard some claims were debunked. Maybe that was one of the debunked claims. But uh, I couldn't say much about that. All right, here's a reply from Evolutionary to Audrey. He says, but Dan is saying that sacrificing one's body and life is okay. No, I'm not. I've never said that. It's not considered a sacrifice in objectivism if you're doing something that's in your self-interest. And these need to be kept apart. They're mutually exclusive, self-interest and self-sacrifice. At least that's the way it's thought of in objectivism. So if you're giving up some value for the sake of a higher value, it's not a sacrifice. So if you're giving up your life um, without a kid for the sake of your kid being able to live after you die, that's not a sacrifice. If you value your kid more highly than a life without your kid, that's an act of self-interest. Uh, Dispel says what groups thought that was objectively true and which thought it was subjectively true. Are you asking about the Haitians eating dogs comments? So which groups thought that Haitians eating dogs was objectively true and which groups thought it was subjectively true? I'm not sure what you're referring to there. All right, some more chats coming in from Evolutionary, but I do want to take a break. Maybe I can get to the chats after my break. So I'm going to take like a 7 or 8 minute break and then we continue after that. So I'm going to just turn off my mic and camera. And this time I'm going to remember to cut the Zoom stream. I don't know if you'll notice that on your end, but by doing that, um, by disconnecting YouTube from Zoom, then I think people who watch this video later won't have to wait through my 7 or 8 minute break. They can just go immediately to when I come back. But I guess you're not going to notice any difference now during the live stream since you're here, but it might be better for later viewers. So, all right. So I will see you shortly. And I do encourage you to keep chatting. That'll give me more to engage with when I come back. All right. Thanks for being here, everyone. See you soon. I just came back for a second because I forgot I changed my screen name to Dan Norton will be back shortly so that anyone who joins will see that message on screen. And now I'm going to disconnect from from Zoom and be back in 7 or 8 minutes. Okay. I forgot to reconnect the Zoom stream. Okay. I think I'm back now. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I've been talking for about 10 minutes and I think uh I wasn't I forgot to reconnect Zoom to YouTube when I came back. So I've been here for like 10 minutes talking to myself and I just noticed Audrey said when Dan jumps back on, he can maybe answer those questions better than I can. I thought I was on answering questions for like, oh man, my last 10, 15 minutes is evaporated. Oh, geez. I'm sorry about that. So I said I was going to be back in 7 or 8 minutes, and I was, but when I came back, I forgot to reconnect Zoom to YouTube. I'm sorry about that. So that would explain why my concurrent viewer went down to one. It's now back up to five, but I was wondering, like, why is the view count so low? Because I saw Evolutionary and Audrey were in the chat going back and forth. So I said, at least two people are here. Why does it say one? And then I realized, oh, wait, I forgot to reconnect the Zoom stream. So I apologize for that. Um, I was making a bunch of comments, which nobody heard, about the discussion between Evolutionary and Audrey. So maybe I can repeat some of that in a brief form. Um, for the live audience. Well, I guess people who listen to this later also. Billy says all good in the hood. Okay. Hi, Billy. I think that's the first chat from you I've seen today. Welcome back. Well, I guess on the plus side is people won't have to who listen to this later. They won't have to listen. They won't have to wait through a super long break. On the minus side is you just lost like 10 or 15 minutes of content from of me talking. Uh, okay. So what was so I was reading through these comments. I was reading a bunch of comments from Audrey and Matthew and Evolutionary. Oh, yeah. So here's one point I will make. I think that Evolutionary is misunderstanding what the idea of sacrifice is, according to objectivism. Like when he asks um, at 4:32 Pacific, how is sacrificing yourself for one's kids self-benefiting? It's not, if it actually is sacrificing. But on my view, it's not sacrificing if you do something like risk your life to save your kid who's drowning, assuming you love your kid and you would be more miserable without your kid than just dying now. So it's actually in your self-interest to save your kid. But what I was saying is, let's say we disagree on what is actually in your self-interest. Like maybe I think it's in my self-interest to risk my life for saving the kid, and you think it's not in my self-interest to risk my life for saving the kid. I'm going to do whatever's in my self-interest. If you can convince me that you're right and that it's actually not in my self-interest to risk my life to save my kid from drowning, then I'm not going to do it. if you can't convince me of that, if I'm convinced that it is in my self-interest to risk my life to save my kid, then I'm going to do that. But whatever is in my self-interest, that's what I'm going to do. Now, it seems like you are opposed to that idea. So we might disagree about what self-interest looks like in practice. For instance, whether it entails saving your kid or trying to save your kid from drowning or not. But whatever it does consist of, whoever's right about this, that's what you should do, on my view. Now, why should you put anything above your self-interest or your own self-interest or your own happiness? Do you have an answer to that? Setting aside, what self-interest consists in, what it looks like, whatever it looks like, why should you put anything ahead or of more importance than your own self-interest and happiness? Like society, you talked before evolutionary about like society will go on after you die. Um, but like I was saying before, I think before the break, like who cares? Like why does that matter? So existence will go on without me, but what's most important to me is my own life. And we can debate about how that applies to dealing with your kids, but however it turns out, whatever is best for my own life and happiness, why should I put anything above that? I don't think you should. And that's the egoist point of view. I think I might have also made the point about Donahue. Did I say that before the break? Ayn Rand had an interview with Donahue, and he asked her back in the late 70s or 1980, around there, like, do you ever think about what happens after you die, um, when you're gone? And Ayn Rand says something like, well, it's the universe that stops existing, not me. And I think that's a way of getting across this egoist perspective. Like what's most relevant to your own life is you. It's not something that might exist after you're gone. Um, okay, so let me come back to the chat. Um, define self-interest, Dan, preferably of a formula. Like, what do you mean? Like a mathematical formula or what? I think this issue came up before. I think you were asking for a definition of self-interest. I don't remember exactly what I said, but um, whatever is best for your own life and happiness, something like that is how I would characterize or define self-interest. Whatever is best for your own life and happiness. I could look up what Ayn Rand says. I mean, I think there's no like one magic formula. I think you could express it in different words, but something along the lines of whatever most promotes your own life and happiness is what your self-interest consists of. Audrey says, I would define self-interest as the maximization of one's survival. Okay. I think that's reasonable. Billy says, I was watching a thing earlier about royal bloodlines and rare blood types. Guy on YouTube named Robert Seffer talks a lot about it. Okay, I'm not sure what that's related to. I'm just going to say something in the chat here about my absence earlier. Sorry I was late coming back from my break. In case someone is just reading this chat and maybe they don't hear everything, but they will see this in the chat and that'll help explain what happens. I didn't realize I forgot to reconnect Zoom to YouTube. So I was talking for about 10 minutes. Okay, I just put that little apology explanation in the chat. Um, oh, somebody has entered the Zoom waiting room by the name of Alex. Okay. I don't know who Alex is. I like to know who's calling in. Alex, could you let me know in the YouTube chat if that's you? Maybe you have a different screen name on YouTube, but could you just type in the YouTube chat and say that's me who called in or something? Oh, we got another subscriber. Thank you. Up to 937. Working my way up to 1,000. I was actually thinking about the sometimes I tell people like if you subscribe before I hit 1,000, you'll know exactly what number subscriber you are. Because once you hit 1,000, it only shows you three digits. Like if you're a subscriber number 1,001, you won't see that I have 1,001 subscribers on YouTube. It'll just say 1K subscribers, or maybe it'll say 1.00K, but it won't give you the ones digit. So as a way to incentivize people to subscribe now and be part of the first 1,000, I'd say, well, you can know exactly what your number is. Like if you want to be subscriber number 938, if you can know that if you subscribe right now, you'll know exactly what your number is. But then I realized later that your number, maybe it actually changes in a sense because if if I go to 938 subscribers and then some people unsubscribe, now what number are you? So let's say it goes up to 938 and then someone else unsubscribes. Are you now number 937? Did it like bump you down one? Or what number are you? So now you might actually be like, even if you subscribe right now and it goes up to 938, you could technically be a much higher number of like maybe you are the 1,351st subscriber. Like I don't know how many people have subscribed to my channel in the lifetime of my channel. Maybe I've had like 1,300 people or so subscribe. But because I lose some subscribers over time, it goes up and down. Um, I think like maybe like 25 or 30% of people who subscribe at some point eventually unsubscribe. Then that would mean that over the lifetime of my channel, I might have had like 1,300, even though right now it's like under 1,000 because I lost some. So I don't know what order you are in that lifetime sequence, but at least right now you can say you are subscriber number 938. And if that changes later, well, um, I guess you at least have some idea of where you fit in, but it gets a little more complicated to assess like exactly what number subscriber are you, given that it can change over time. how many subscribers I have, and because you can unsubscribe and resubscribe. Sometimes people do that. I've seen people unsubscribe and then resubscribe later. So do they have like two distinct subscriber numbers if you do that? Anyways, not too important, but just getting into some of the technical issues of YouTube metrics. But is Alex still in the, oh, Alex, you're still in the waiting room and you haven't let me know on, I haven't seen anything on YouTube letting me know it's you. So I don't know if you're a troll, Alex, or what. Sometimes people try to troll me. Um, and maybe you are one such person since you're not letting me know who you are. You could also talk to me in YouTube chat, or I mean in Zoom chat. I guess I'll try that. I think you should also be able to initiate a chat with me in Zoom. That's what I meant. Can you send me a Zoom chat? Message. All right. I just said hi in the Zoom chat. Can you reply to that, Alex? Maybe Alex stepped away. Maybe I don't know how long he's been there. I wonder if he called during the break and because it was so long, he did something else and he hasn't come back yet. But I don't see any reply in Zoom chat from Alex. I guess there's another thing I could do. Um, so I realized recently that there's a way for me to interact with someone through Zoom without bringing them onto YouTube, which is so what I would have to do is what I did during the break. I would have to cut the Zoom stream to YouTube and then just interact with the person offline. I used to have a separate call screening number, which I've used a little in the past, but I think maybe it's more streamlined and efficient to just do it in Zoom rather than use this separate call screening number I had. So maybe I'll give that a try. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. All right, so I'm going to disconnect from YouTube again. Now, this time I'm not going to turn off my mic and camera, so maybe you'll just see a frozen shot of the way I look right now, more or less. But then after I try to screen this call, see if I can get in touch with Alex, I'll maybe I'll just spend like a minute or less doing that. And then I will reconnect the stream. So I might seem frozen for a little bit, but I'll come back shortly. Like I think it won't, I don't think it'll take more than like a minute to see if I can get in touch with Alex. All right, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, let me make sure my Zoom settings are right. Okay. Actually, before I cut the Zoom connection, I'll just admit him from the waiting room to the live feed, but you're not going to see or hear him at first. I think. I think that's how it should work. Okay, I just admitted Alex. Can you type something in the chat, Alex? Oh, he just said hello. Maybe he had to wait for me to admit him to Zoom. Okay, I'm gonna type back. He says chat is disabled in the waiting room. Okay. I thought there was a way for people to actually use the chat. I thought I got that to work before once, but another time I couldn't get it to work, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. But anyways, I'm gonna say, can you type something in the YouTube chat? Why does it say, oh, waiting room participants? Am I chatting in the right place? I'm chatting in the wrong place, I think. Let me try something else. Uh, oh, I'll try this private message. I'm not very familiar with how the Zoom chat module works, but I'm going to try. Did you see this message? Okay, I just sent Alex a private message. Yes, he says. Okay. Um, can you type something in the YouTube chat? He says, I'm not on YouTube. Um, I'm going to say, why not? One Dan is plenty. Yeah, I just want to, I'm trying to see what your YouTube sh screen name is. That's all. Um, I'm going to say, what is your YouTube screen name? Oh, Audrey says she's got to go. Okay. Bye, Audrey. Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it. My Zoom is affiliated with my real identity. Not sure I want to dox. Thanks for asking. Okay. Oh, you mean your YouTube is affiliated with your real identity? Um, okay. Or maybe you do mean well, I already said your name, your Zoom name, so I just saw a thumb. Okay, I'm gonna try I'm trying to decide if I should screen this call on my Google Voice line or just try to do it on Zoom. Okay, I think I'm going to do it on Zoom, which means I have to disconnect for a minute. Okay, I'm going to disconnect my stream for a minute and screen this call, and then I'm going to come back. So I think what's going to happen is on YouTube, it's going to like freeze my picture when I disconnect the stream, and then it'll start moving again once I reconnect it. All right, that's what I'm going to try. Okay, I will be back soon. Okay, I think I am back now. Just checking on my phone, and I'll type that in the chat as well. But I don't see I still look frozen on my phone. Maybe there's a delay of, I don't know how long, 15 seconds? Oh, why is okay, now I'm moving. Okay. Um, I was frozen on my phone. Why is okay, now I'm moving. All right. So I screened that caller. It took longer. I'm sorry about that. And I chatted with him for a few minutes, and it sounded like he did not want to have a respectful, civil conversation, based on how the screening call went. So I decided, no, I don't want to take this call. So I'm glad I screened the call because I don't want to have uncivil, disrespectful conversations here on my channel. I mean, I'm happy to entertain objections, criticisms, questions, but they need to be done in a respectful way and not in a obnoxious, rude kind of way. And I wasn't getting a good vibe from this caller. So decided, nope, not going to take this call. All right. Wasn't getting a good vibe. All right. Well, that was a good experience, I guess. It was the first time I screened a call through Zoom. So hopefully in the future, if I need to do that, it'll go a little smoother. But there was some confusion about how to chat because I the chat wasn't working at first, and that took a while to figure that out. So this should all go more smoothly the more I do this. Um, all right. But looks like the chat has slowed down, maybe because Audrey had to leave and she was the one engaging most with Evolutionary. I don't know if Evolutionary is still here. See, there's another one from Billy. Something he's talking about the Scott Irish. Maybe I'll read these later. And then maybe in the next stream, I will comment on some of the ones that I didn't have time to get to in this stream, just like today I commented on some of the comments from the last stream that I didn't have time to get to then. Okay, we just got a new chat from Billy. He says, I do wish the USA and Iran could have better diplomatic relations. I don't know what it's going to take though. It didn't always used to be this way. We were on much friendlier terms generations ago. I think it's probably good to cut off diplomatic relations with Iran. I think we should be at war with them because of going back to 1979 when they took the American hostages at the embassy. I don't think it's good to have diplomatic relations with evil anti-American regimes that chant death to America. I don't think it's good to negotiate, treat as civilized people like that. It gives them a sanction that I don't think they deserve. And I think it legitimizes them to have diplomatic relations. And I don't think they deserve that. I think they deserve to be overthrown. So, um, all right. Well, maybe this is a good time to end the show for today. We had a call and lots of chats, so that was good. Thanks to Holden for calling in again, and thanks for everyone who participated in the chat. And thanks for all the likes and the new subscribers. Definitely appreciate that. So if you haven't yet liked the show and you did like the show, I'd appreciate it if you give it a like. And if you like my content and if you want to help my channel grow, if you could subscribe, that would be great. You can be part of the elite group of the first 1,000 subscribers. Maybe I'll give you a perk later, like you can ask a free super chat question once I start taking super chats. Um, Billy says, U.S. travel advisory says travel to Iran is a no-go. Says even having an American passport is enough for them to detain them. Oh, so if you go to Iran with an American passport, maybe they'll detain you, maybe take you hostage. I wonder if that would happen. That would be scary. Um, yeah, that regime needs to go. It's long overdue. We need a pro-life regime, not an anti-life regime. Pro-life, pro-happiness, secular this worldly regime. All right, so I'm going to end the stream for today, and maybe I will stream in another 4 days. What would that be? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, maybe on Saturday. We'll see. It always depends on a day-by-day basis. I have to see like what's going on. Did any issues come up? Did I get a good night's sleep? But hopefully, sometime around Saturday, I'll stream. And if you're subscribed and hit that bell, you'll get a notification. Okay. Uh, Thanks everyone for coming by, and I hope to see you in a future live stream. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.